Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, September the 11th. So, I started so early in streaming that I did one of the daily quests and now I've clicked on this and this is taking forever to load. This is the second time this has happened in the last couple of weeks. Everything is just locked up. I may have to exit the entire game. The Tavern Brawl, we were waiting. Let's just exit and relaunch because that crashed. Hearthstone, surprisingly, is getting worse. It's getting worse in its programming, not better. And frankly, they've never fixed some of the problems that it had. Or not really. So we have win 2 Paladin games, which being Wednesday, we should probably try to get that done. And onward to Oldham, which is win the Tavern Brawl. And I can't re-roll anything anyway, so we're gonna see what this does. And see what the Tavern Brawl is. Meanwhile, I'm gonna try and burn through the news, and I think we'll have no real problem getting through the news. But I may crash at some point and just fall asleep or be halfway towards falling asleep. Zephyrs has blessed you with a random deck and 3 wishes and no wishing for more wishes. Alright. So we just pick Paladin and play the Brawl. And a random deck. How random is a random deck? We shall see. Because I could see a really random deck with a whole 10 mana cards being impossible to win with, or a random deck just being based off a recipe that they suggest.
Uther versus Garrosh.
We're just playing against people. So what are
I will fight with honor.
Nightmare Amalgam. Draw 2 minions from your deck, set their attack health and cost to 1. Why would I want that ability? On the 8th turn. That's not going to be useful. That's not going to be useful. This might be useful at some point. This might be useful at some point. But let's re-roll just to get an idea of what we've got. I don't know if our deck would re-randomize on a second gameplay. It seems like it's kind of a Murloc deck. Wish for the perfect card. Shuffle a second wish into your deck. Do I need the perfect card right now? Or could I just, do this? And then we'll wait until we can draw cards.
For justice.
Doesn't that make more sense? Wait till we have a lower deck of cards so we get that second wish and third wish. Because I don't know what the first wish is even. Is the third wish win the game automatically? Alright. Divine Shield Poisonous.
For justice.
I'm not gonna let him draw a card. News-wise, we have a Tech Raptor article. Zelda's Like a Knight's Quest is coming to PC and consoles this fall. Zelda-like is used quite often as a descriptor of games, and it really doesn't mean anything because this game looks like an adventure game in 3D, which is like Zelda Ocarina of Time, but it doesn't look like any of the top-down Game Boy Zelda games. So it really should just be described as a 3D fantasy adventure more than anything else, instead of calling it a Zelda-like. You're really putting yourself up to high criticism and comparisons when you call yourself a Zelda-like. But yeah, I'll keep an eye out for a nice quest when it really actually comes out. Discover a secret. which give it Divine Shield. There we go. This is a slightly interesting article from Gamma Sutra. BAFTA has shuffled its categories for the 2020 Game Awards. I felt like the categories for BAFTA 2019 were pretty bad. The submissions are also open.
What now?
Namely, the mobile game category has been removed from the running as part of effort to focus on the awards show on celebrating craft excellence. The now retired award, Mobile Award, is the last remaining platform-specific category left in the show, but add that the audience selected EE Mobile Gaming of the Year will remain as is. So you just summoned that for me, thank good. Thanks for that. Handful of new categories have come. I don't feel like BAFTA does a great job as far as celebrating the video game world. I kind of just don't think they know what they're doing, for lack of a better descriptor.
Time's over.
There we go. Now I'm down to 22 cards. So, new categories. Is there an animation category to cover all aspects of animation and cinematics? A technical achievement category to replace game innovation category, and a cover gameplay programming and visual engineering, and categories for leading role and performing in a supporting role to replace single performance category and bring video games in line with the BAFTA's Film and Television Awards.
I wonder.
Yeah, still really not feeling like there's much to the BAFTAs. And I kind of don't know if there's just much to any kind of video game award shows. Alright, here we go.
Playtime's over. Playtime's over.
That's 12 damage. So the wish cards weren't particularly special.
Unity, precision,
They just kind of figured out what they thought you would want and gave it to you. Right. Give him Murloc +1/+1. Draw some cards. There we go. Redemption. Arc. And do that. In the turn there. So I have like 2 protecting secrets. So there's no way you're killing this guy. Yep, maybe this year's BAFTAs will be different and feel a little bit more relevant, but maybe not. Okay. We need like something with rush. So that guy came back to life, but he didn't come back with his life steal or his wind fury. Yeah, that stinks. Okay, we have a game on Steam called Ashes 2 that Looks like it's an asset flip survival
I live
first-person
to serve
game.
the Lich King.
We have some generic looking life bars, far too many of them. Hunger bars, thirst bars, things like that. Let's show what's happening over here. Ashes 2 is labeled as an early access game. Its full price is $4.99 with no discount. It's English and Russian, so it makes me feel like it's a low effort Russian game. Let's see.
What a tragedy!
There we go. In the turn. So of course Ashes 2 is not making it to the fall list, let alone the wish list.
Access denied.
I did not curate games, otherwise I would have removed it. Because it really is not the type of games that's worth mentioning even. Alright. 7 Murlocs that died this game. Can we do that? Spell damage.
Truth is my shield.
This guy's just gonna do 2 damage to all other characters anyway, so we might as well kill this guy. Next game we have on Steam is called Shuttlecock H Covered Rematch, which is a bullet hell game with anime characters. It is clearly a low effort game to the left with low effort anime characters on the right. Do not be suckered. It is $1.19 discounted. It's not even tagged as having actual nudity or sexual content. It's English, Japanese. It says it has full Japanese audio. I question that. Polish and Chinese. The Polish is weird, certainly. Like why you would support Polish out of all the other languages. So yeah, we're still getting low effort lewd games too. Alright. Let's try this. And do that, and that's just gonna kill everything. Are any of these 1 mana cards? No, so that wouldn't have helped anyways. Well, I wouldn't say that was amazingly well played, but the fact that we were doing just random things and not knowing what the cards were, made it difficult. So now the experiment will be, are we going to get the same mostly Murloc based deck, or are we going to get a completely different Paladin deck?
Luther versus Jaina.
As we're waiting to see that, Techcopter has an article, Remnant from the Ashes Adventure Mode and Leader's Lab is coming in a free update. I think I already mentioned this. Probably just reopen the same article. I'm not sure about Remnant from the Ashes. It sounds like a game that's good, but it also seems like maybe it was a flash in the pan type game where it's not going to get enough of a player base sticking with it. I could see people jumping over to Gears 5 or something else instead. Yeah, this is a dragon deck. Now, I definitely don't know how to play a dragon deck. I wonder. So, let's just play the first wish first and just start with something.
Job done.
and in return there. Next we have eFootball PES 2020. Looks like it's a soccer game. I don't think I'd ever play a soccer PC game. It's mostly positive, but sports games aren't my thing, and soccer in particular is not my thing. $59.99, no discount. Lots of language support. It's from Konami, and that should probably be a bit of a warning flag, to say it a little bit. But honestly, all games companies that make sports games are shady, so Konami being Konami doesn't mean you'd get much better if you were playing an EA soccer game. I guess there isn't an EA soccer game that I can think of. Let's see. Roll this. And play this. And in return, I probably shouldn't have played that because 1 damage is not enough to matter. See, if I play this on the 10th turn, I have no idea why I'd want to do that. That was a waste of a secret. Hidden Wisdom. That's what we want to do. I think you constantly just want to draw more cards in these decks. Just have more cards. Next we have a game on Steam called My Train Arrives. This looks like a train management city sim. It doesn't look better than City Skylines, and I didn't even like City Skylines. $4.24 discounted, English, German, and Russian. Yep. There's also Train Simulator if you're just really into trains. Draw a card and equal.
You dare challenge the daughter of Yeti?
So, okay. Now he's gonna have to kill all those characters. TechRaptor has an article here. Konami announces Frogger and Toy Town exclusively for the Apple Arcade. A lot of the games that are being claimed to be exclusives aren't exclusives, by the way. Apparently, if you collect 100 jelly beans, you turn into Super Frogger, which is not something I think ever existed before. Next bit of news we have from Gamma Sutra. Nintendo wins the UK court case over Nintendo Switch piracy and modification. Seems like they're having a good run of court cases around the world as far as piracy. So the thing I think that caught their attention was Switch piracy in particular, because I would have to assume that they can't possibly really care about people getting ROMs for Super Mario World or something like that. But they might. Of course, they can't prosecute everybody that does that. That's a significant amount, if not all, of the retro gaming community. And let's be honest, Nintendo's offerings with the NES Classic and Super NES Classic, well, alright, but I suspected that they would either put out a patch, an upgrade, some kind of USB device to add more games or change the games on them, or they'd come out with, at the very least, a second version of the NES Classic and Super NES Classic that would make have some more games to show, but they really haven't done that.
A shift in the sky.
Let's get to 10th. I think we could see how this goes. 8 plus this is 13. And they still haven't activated this trap. ROMs of old games in particular are a great example of things that probably should be in the public domain. Nintendo did nothing with the old copies of their game, of most of the games that they had direct license to, and until the NES Classic, 2 decades later, 3 decades later. Like the NES came out, I believe, in 83, 85. Okay. Taunt. Just gotta do this.
Let me think. They'll come for you.
Next we have a game on Steam called Lucid Nina, which would be almost like an RPG Maker game if you had not used RPG Maker and instead used MS Paint and pixel graphics to make something that looks like almost an NES style game. I think the zoom is probably right. A lot of times you're either zoomed out a little bit too much or you're zoomed in a little too much. As far as just framing, that's what cinematography, a lot of it is about. But there's nothing here that really looks like it's a very interesting game by any means. $3.59 discounted, English, allegedly full audio.
Let me think.
I'm unimpressed by this. Second wish. There we go. Deal 10 damage. Hey, that is the perfect card. So it does seem like they know what card you should get. And so if they know what card you should get, then I guess the question becomes, are they manipulating what cards you get at any point? Because there probably are some points where when Hearthstone should. Like if you're playing a solo adventure and you've been playing for 3 hours and you're on the final boss, it would make sense for them to be generous and just let you win when there's not even a human that you're playing against. But it doesn't seem like they really do that, so maybe they're working to fix that. It would have been very nice if when Hearthstone was in beta and when it first came out, there was this concerted effort to have a single player experience where you win a lot more often and you have a much better experience. Now, that would make ranked feel a little sucky for sure, but I don't think that's the worst way to do things. There's plenty of games out there that are single player with multiplayer elements, and if you play the single player, particularly if you're playing it on easy, you have a cakewalk, and then as soon as you start playing against real people, you get your butt handed to you. I would be a lot happier if Hearthstone was more like that, where it was single player, at least 50% of the focus was on single player, instead of very little the focus being on single player.
Reporting for duty.
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Raji's God of War-like gameplay brings Indian mythology to everyone. Never heard of this game, Raji. Or did I? Was this one of these games developed by one of the 3 Indian companies out of India? Is this a new video for that game? Raji and Ancient Epic. Let's see. Was it GDC? Yeah, I think this is that game by one of the 3 somewhat new Indian companies out of India. Yeah, this is that game. And this is only slightly improved trailer. I am holding my breath for Raji as a game that is taking the Indian mythology and treating it with any level of understanding, instead of it being often either completely misused or completely misunderstood by either a Westerner or, let's face it, a Japanese company. Of course, the problems with trying to have a video game company in India is that India, depending on what province you're in and what day of the week it is not super supportive of the idea of video games existing at all. So it's hard to do business when your home country that you're working in is hostile to your style of work. Also, India, just government-wise, is always a little unstable and weird. But on the other hand, if we could get some of the IT people off of YouTube making videos in thick Indian accents that I can't understand, I might appreciate that a little bit. Like, so often I'll look for like a Linux tutorial and I'll be googling it and really just wanting text, and instead I'll be given a YouTube video that is somebody who is barely understandable. Often a lot of tutorials on YouTube are terrible anyways because they aren't answering the question correctly or in any interesting way or helpful way. Less than interesting. Yeah, TechRaptor has a line in their article here. Hinduism is a vast and deep well to draw from with a massive pantheon of important figures to engage with. Which, yeah, sure. That is true. On the other hand, you could say that the same is true for Taoism and Buddhism and Shintoism, and there's only been surface level attempts to bring or use any of that content. Even, Judaism and Christianity, very, very little of that ever comes to video games because it's dangerous to potentially insult someone's religion and cause a backlash to happen. So, yeah. And Hinduism, I think at its core, is a religion, yeah. I don't think too many people would disagree with that.
Uther versus Rexar.
That's why we see way more stories and games around like dead cultures, mythologies, the Greeks, the Vikings. Nobody's alive to complain about those if you mistranslate things or take artistic license. Well, I said 2019 was going to be the year of the pirate, and for all the pirate games that looked like they was coming out, it seemed like that was probably going to be the case. And here we have a game on Steam called Battle Wake, which is rated positively. It looks like it's a VR game though, and unless it has a major single player element to it, I'm not sure what kind of experience you really can expect. This may have been a game I actually have seen a trailer for, where you have like these magical powers that you can use. Also, $25.49 for VR is a little expensive. Let's go ahead and end the turn. And that's a discount. It is single player and multiplayer with online multiplayer and co-op and online co-op. It says it has English full audio. It's rated E10 plus allegedly, according to its page. I think Battleweek deserves to be on the fall list. The scale is not very high for VR games anyways, so even if this was a mediocre game that happened to be played in VR, I think that there's a good idea here. Seems like there's 4 classes of characters you can play as. It probably isn't much of a game, which, like most VR games, they seem to kind of boil down into that category where you really wouldn't want to play it more than a couple hours at a time. But yeah, Battleweek looks like it might be in the top 10 of not shovel games, of VR games. I said shovel because the next article from Tech Raptor is Shovel Knight Dig is a frantic, challenging, and charming. Is this a game coming to a mobile game, or is this coming to PC? I don't think the original Shovel Knight game actually had any digging, or much digging. So what is this coming to? That's my main question. This looks like it could be on an iPad, or it looks like it might be PC. The preview was played on the Switch. There's no list of platforms, so it might be a Switch exclusive. Alright. This.
Converting stored energy.
Converting
stored energy.
This. And this. And in the turn. Now, if he can silence or kill me with his 4 cards, I'm doomed. Yep, doomed. I would really need to get around to playing the original Shovel Knight, though. I guess before I played Shovel Knight Dig. That would only be fair.
Access denied.
Yeah, that could be a category, a contender, frankly, too. For December. I'm trying to think about what I want to play after Torchlight, and I could see playing Shovel Knight. Some kind of platformer similar to that.
Deploying countermeasures.
The battle.
Next we have an article here. TechRaptor has an article. Project Resistance teaser gives us a first look at a Resident Evil multiplayer. Now, it's worth mentioning that every Resident Evil side game for a long time has been pretty bad. Now, this video looks kind of good, like a 4-player multiplayer game running through Resident Evil 2 Remake. Perhaps this was the multiplayer content that they were developing and trying to have in Resident Evil 2, and then they decided to actually let's leave that on the floor.
I wonder.
I don't know if this really is going to turn into a Left 4 Dead style game. These are just actors and CGI, I think, or maybe this is actually animated, but this is not in-game footage. So
Let me think.
yeah, that definitely is a teaser. Project Resistance. The idea that there was some kind of effort or resistance to fight the zombies in the during the raccoon incident
Reporting for
makes a little bit of sense, but not a lot.
move quickly.
One would have assumed that they would have all gotten bit and killed very quickly. I don't think you're really playing a Resident Evil game if you're playing with multiple people, because then you're not really having to deal with a lot of resource management, which is a key factor, I think, in Resident Evil, and you're not probably having to deal with any health management, which is a key factor. Probably not running into any kind of keys or codes, because that would be a mess too. So it really is just going to be a multiplayer game fighting zombies, very much like that Metal Gear Survive game, I believe was the name of it. It was just using the name of Metal Gear to sell a terrible survival game. So yeah, I think that unfortunately this is an example of Capcom getting back to the old ways that Capcom does things, which is they make terrible games every now and then they go, oh, we're sorry, we'll never do that again, we're actually going to listen to the public, and then they'll make a great game and people will forget about all the terrible games they made. The Resident Evil series alone is the history of that, where Resident Evil 4 is great in my opinion. I think Resident Evil 5 is just a little bit worse than 4, and then Resident Evil 6 is garbage, and nobody should ever bother playing it at all. Meanwhile, there were several other side Resident Evil games that were also released in that same time frame. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Skater XL looks to fill EA Skate's shoes. So a new skate game from a AAA studio. Okay, interesting. It certainly has been a long time since there's been any kind of skating game. I'm not sure how much I would really play of a skating game. I remember renting some biking, skating, similar styles of games, and they were alright, but they weren't great. I'm losing my lead here, so I'm just gonna play casual and get this final victory. Yeah. Do you really want an old school skate game where it's like there's hundreds of missions and collectibles and all kinds of grinds and tricks you have to do to push you into continue playing it? The deck selection is not valid for this game mode. What are you talking about, game? I swear it's just getting buggier and buggier. They just released a patch. Did they not test their own patch? So, yeah. I don't know how you make a shorter, more concise, more interesting experience that you would want in 2019 around skating and not make something that would make sense in 1990 when skate games were all the rage. You really can't just throw a soundtrack in it and a bunch of collections and a bunch of skins for skating brands. There kind of needs to be some kind of story, and it can be just a story of a bunch of friends out skating. That's a perfectly fine story to tell, but it kind of has to have a main character. It kind of has to have some reason. It doesn't have to be crazy like Jet Set Radio or anything, which I don't know if you really call Jet Set Radio a pure skating game, but at least it is memorable. But yeah, if you tell me that I have to do a 720 on a half pipe, and then I struggle to do a 720 on a half pipe in a skating game, which is inevitably this is what would happen if I tried to play a sports skating game. Is it would tell me to do something like a 720 on a half pipe and or off a half pipe, and then I would be unable to do it. If it had decent checkpointing, I would try over and over again, but I very possibly would fail and just get frustrated and just give up. And I think that's probably a lot of people's experience in skate games is, did you really make it to the end? Did you really unlock everything? I'm sure there were people that did, but I wouldn't be surprised if a large number of people didn't. My favorite skating game that I ever played was a Wii game called Tony Hawk Downhill Jam, and the reason why I liked it is because the controls were super stupid easy, and there was really no way to lose, and that you were not falling over much, and you were not losing much, and you were just getting numbers thrown at your face for every little action, so you were getting like way more positive feedback than you deserved for every little waggle of the Wiimote. It would make him do a trick that in no way correlated to the waggling you were doing. But it worked. It worked for people that don't really play skate games to kind of like a skate game, which probably isn't much of a market, so I wouldn't target that market, but it would be nice if there was an easy mode in any skate game that did come out. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Kunai, I believe is how that's pronounced, makes robots cute and deadly. So, what is Kunai? I'm fairly certain this is a new game I haven't heard about. Looks like it's a platforming shooting game. I'm not sure I really like the art style here. And it seems like there's not a lot of enemies and the camera zoomed in a little too close. Particularly for a shooting game.
Move quickly.
We're in this weird position where a couple days from now Borderlands 3 comes out. This was a PAX game, so maybe it won't come out for a while. Let's see what it says on Steam. Yeah, it has no button or announcement as far as when it's coming out at all. So it could be 6 months from now. I'm dividing my attention in a bad way between games that are out right now and games that might be out 6 months to 3 to 4 years from now. The next story we have from TechRaptor, and yeah, I'm pretty much getting all my news from TechRaptor and Gamatsu and Gamasutra at this point. That's the only three sources I'm watching. Although, you know, the whole Alec Hovek, I believe is his name, and Zoe Quinn issue where Alec Hovek killed himself after Zoe Quinn made accusations against him. Seems like more evidence has come out, records of her tweets and messages showing that things she claimed just don't line up and don't make sense. Yeah, more evidence seems to have come out. If you want to choose to believe that evidence or disbelieve it, take your pick. But more evidence seems to have come out proving her to be not accurately portraying the situation or completely portraying this situation or truthfully portraying the situation. I think it's fair. I think you could probably find many examples where Zoe Quinn is proven to be dishonest and basically a liar. So that was my opinion of her from the very little I even knew about her. She certainly didn't seem to ever really have any credibility that she deserved. So it's not really a story I have to follow up too much on. Just, yeah, it's out there. Sid Alpha has an update on it. Now, arguably, you could say that maybe all this,
Victory is
all of the information is coming from the same one source, as so many video game stories are. So, if Sid Alpha is getting his information from Reddit, and everybody else reporting on it is getting their information from Reddit, so it might be the all coming from the same person. That's not much different than any other news reporting that happens these days, unfortunately. And Sid Alpha tries to have multiple sources and be as journalistically ethical as possible. I would put his ethics up against most mainstream video game journalists' ethics any day of the week. So now we're on the Asian account. I forgot what got me on that conversation. Let's see, what do we want to reroll? Let's reroll this. 20 cards, win 2 games. That's fairly easy. And unfortunately, I think at this rate, we are going to... I'm gonna run out of daily quests before I run out of news, so let's try to burn through the news faster. Terracopter has an article. The Control September update brings bugs fixes galore and new visual options. This kind of sucks because I've played all of Control now. I didn't really like it enough that I would want to go back and play it. Fixing some bugs would be nice. I didn't really run into any bugs unless I try to make the facetious claim that falling to your death is a bug that happens a lot in Control. Or there are definitely some areas that don't have what I think you would describe as global illumination set up, instead trying to have the ray tracing in particular be the only thing that's creating any light source. Usually when you're designing games, there are just invisible orbs that bring up the brightness just so it's not a completely dark game. Control had none of that. It was super dark in sections, and I really wanted a flashlight button. I really wanted something that would just say, let's bring out a flashlight and look in this area. Let's see. Some of the new UI elements you can expect include a motion blur and film grain toggles. I don't see any reason why I would want to turn on motion blur or film grain. Map loading times have been improved. I don't think Control had terrible map loading times, particularly considering how big their maps are. Although the fast traveling and loading into the game itself was pretty slow. Ultra-wide monitors bugs have been fixed. A couple UI bugs, including one that centers the camera on the main character's Jesse's head, have been squashed, along with multiple UI related issues according to the official patch notes. There's also a bunch of progression fixes. A bug that stopped you from acquiring the piercing charge efficiency or spinning grouping efficiency upgrades have been fixed. I have no idea what those even are. I seriously stopped playing Control less than a week ago. Pierce charging efficiency and spin grouping efficiency upgrades. Maybe that's an upgrade that could have been done for the gun pierce and spin, but I never got anywhere close to upgrading it. And see, that's the thing about Control in particular, is that I barely played that game, and I just ran through the main story, and I was not interested in the main story at all. I just don't think they did a good job with it, and I was definitely not interested in the gameplay mechanics. And so when it was giving me more and more side quests, those were not things I wanted to deal with. This and this.
Job done.
And then in the turn. Let's see. The article continues. There's also a number of new story and side mission related fixes, including the one for the old friend side mission. I don't think I did that side mission, and one for the face of the enemy, which maybe I did that, but I didn't run into any bugs.
Behold!
Like, even if they fix a lot of the performance issues, which particularly on consoles control was buggy, I don't think they fix the main problem with the game. I just don't think that it gets addressed. What they needed more than anything, and what's not being mentioned in this article, is a difficulty setting. You have to play that game on the one difficulty it offers you, and you will, if you're not particularly a great third-person shooter player with a lot of experience with cover mechanics, you're not going to have a good time. And even if you are able to get through all the fights fine, you're still going to spend a lot of time doing the fights, which is going to be annoying. And I would seriously have considered getting rid of all the fight mechanics completely in the game and making something closer to a Life is Strange style game. The plot of Life is Strange 1, frankly, is better than the plot of Control, because it's more realistic and less convoluted and conceited. And I don't think the plot of Life is Strange 1 was particularly good at all either. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Game music and empathy. This is a blog, how composers can enhance a virtual presence, part 3. I wonder how many game music composers there really are. This is another one of these GDC presentations that they just convert into articles and then spin everything over again. Say the same things over and over again. Okay. This. This.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Attack. There we go.
Time.
Next we have an article from TechRaptor. Wanderlust travel stories sees you solo travel the world. This is another PAX West game that came out. It looks like this is mostly a text-based game. Seems like they're doing write-ups on every single game they looked at, which would be typical, the old school way of doing PC journalism. Go to a convention, write an article about everything. There we go.
Job's done.
In the turn. Yeah, I see nothing interesting about Wanderlust travel stories. I mean, frankly, it would be hard to write a game or story around just traveling in general. There kind of needs to be more action and more of a reason there. Okay. This. I can do this. I can play this. Right, and then we can do this, or do we want to? Yeah, this is the right order to do this. 2, 4. Play a couple of these in a turn. Gamatsu has a similar article. Action adventure game A Knight's Quest announced for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. A Knight's Quest being the game that described itself, or was described at least by TechRaptor, as a Zelda-like game. It looks interesting. That being said, there's been several action adventure Nintendo 64 looking style games that at the end of the day didn't really stand up to any kind of scrutiny or got like nothing. We're drawing cards at least, so we might as well just keep on doing that. Playing warlock cards, drawing cards. Speaking of Life is Strange, TechRaptor has an article. Life is Strange 2 has been temporarily removed from sale in Australia. Do they have some kind of drug usage in it? My guess is maybe there was a reason for that. Quote, here, we will restore service ASAP and keep you updated with any developments. All already installed Life is Strange content will not be removed from your dice during your period and will still be playable. Life is Strange is an episodic game though, and I believe the last bit of it is coming out fairly recently. Australia in particular is quite unhappy with games that in any way depict drugs positively, and they're not super fans of violence either, and there might be a couple other things they're kind of rather conservative about. The government is at least rather conservative. You wouldn't expect it with the laid back mentality that you would expect you would normally get from an Australian person. At least that's the stereotype.
I am your nightmare.
But yeah, seems like we're getting more and more stories like this where nobody is willing to come out and say why their game is not available or has been removed for sale, but they are getting removed from sale. Which this is a unfair comparison. Here we have a new area, certainly to say, but it is starting to feel like maybe a secret police-like action where game developing companies are just getting swooped up in the middle of the night and told, oh, your game can't be sold because we say so. No legal procedure or light of day or
Almost out of time.
or like day in court style situation. We're gonna go ahead and play this and hope this works. So we already knew the Saviors of Oldham was going to be an Egyptian themed expansion, I guess the solo expansion is still going to be pretty Egyptian themed. They really didn't do a lot with it, so the single player probably could go heavy into that with lots of mummies and elements like that. Okay, here.
Why do you call?
Here. And check there. Next we have a game on Steam called Misfire, which looks like it's a player versus player Smash Brothers style clone game. Early access, $3.74. Odd pricing there, a little too expensive for a cheap game and a little too cheap for a good game. Third party EULA and English interface. There's nothing that impresses me here, and it's multiplayer only anyways, so there's really nothing I could criticize there. Let's do this. And then do this.
Hey, catch! Sure, send the little guy.
And kill that. Gotta do it. Gotta do it or I'll die. Or this guy will die. He still may die.
Everyone has demons.
Why do you call?
TechCrafter has an article. I'm Not a Monster is getting a single player mode on September 19th. Which is weird. I don't know what this game is. It's a weird name, certainly. I'm Not a Monster. Turn-based sci-fi strategy game. Getting a single player mode after it already had a multiplayer game?
I wonder.
What does this game really look like? It looks like a XCOM style top-down experience. What a weird way to sell a game though, to sell it with a multiplayer experience. And they're saying it's a cross between XCOM and the party game Werewolf. So maybe there's questions as far as whether a person is a bad guy or not. Should I kill this guy? No. Should I hit this guy? No. Just leave it. Let's look at their multiplayer component of I'm Not a Monster. See, this is rated very positively, so people have been liking the multiplayer element. I don't think it's really for me though. Yeah, I don't think it really offers, not just because it's multiplayer, I don't think I'd really want to play a single player game or component of a single player game that was an afterthought. Maybe I'm being a little too critical there, but it does kind of feel like what they're saying. Give the leftmost minion in your hand +1/+1, okay? We'll do that next turn. TechRaptor has an article here. Good Old Games Moon Festival sales slashes prices on Japanese gaming classics. So if you want to dive deep into a lot of JRPGs and other games from Japan, now would be the time, particularly if you're purchasing games from Good Old Games, which I don't. But I could see a reason why people would. This guy's gonna... I just lost. I totally just lost. Not paying enough attention. There was 14 damage on the field. He does 14 damage. He probably didn't have a card that could have done much more. Well, he did have a card that could do a little bit more. 2 cards that could do a little bit more. Anyways, this article, they're talking Tokyo Xandu EX Plus is 80% off. The Caligula Effect Overdose is 20% off. Yee's 8 is 35% off. Trails of Cold Steel is 40% off. Plenty of visual novels, quest arcs, and answer arcs from the Yuminiko When They Cry. Question arcs and answer arcs. I didn't even know that there were question arcs and answer arcs. I don't even really know what question arcs and answer arcs are. 50% off. The Expression Emeraldo is 20% off. Cerament Contract with the Devil is 35% off. Now those prices discounts probably don't sound amazingly great, but when you're talking visual novels that very often don't ever go on sale, it's actually a pretty good experience. Let's try something different. Just Murloc Shaman. So here's like Yuminiko When They Cry. Question arcs, $15. This is the first half of the game sound novel series. This is like a different series than what I've seen. Interesting. Okay. Is there anything I want to do better than this? I don't think so. I can see the end of the road as far as news. And we just have a little bit more to do with daily the quests, like 2 more victories. So let's see. This, and this. And then
Job's done.
TechRaptor has an article, Fan Patch makes Streets of SimCity playable on modern PC, which I have no idea what Streets of SimCity is. Apparently it came out in 1997. So the YouTuber Lazy Game Reviewer, or LGR, I've heard of him. Found the patch. Okay, cool. Found a way to get it to work. Looks like this is a SimCity game where you're driving mostly. Okay. This, nice. See, next game we have on Steam is called Total Ski Jump. Now, inevitably, this looks like a low-effort ski-free game. Inevitably, what's going to happen here is, because I'm streaming a little bit earlier, there will be a little bit more news on Friday when almost certainly nobody's going to watch. Total Ski Jump here is discounted to $1.59. It's English and Polish. It's a low-effort, ugly game. It's not making it to the fall list. So yeah, there might be a little bit more that happens, a little bit more that goes on Friday. But otherwise, I think this is working fairly well. My decision to stay up in the stream earlier. TechRaptor has an article here. War Thunder Taiwan controversy emerges as ROC flags are apparently erased. I have no idea. ROC, I guess, is Republic of China. I don't know how much of a controversy this really is, frankly. There was a similar story to this. Yeah, this is really a non-controversy, There's a similar story where a character in one of the Japanese games had earrings that were designed that looked slightly like the flag of the rising sun of Japan, which is still used today, but is somehow associated with World War II, when I don't think they've really even flung that flag during World War II too much. So I think there's just kind of a misunderstanding from what I was reading. And hey, like the United States original 13 colonies flag probably was flown quite a bit during the U.S. Civil War. It's kind of ridiculous for anybody to complain about that still being flown around, at least in a historical perspective. The weird part about this controversy too, is that it's just a bunch of reset era people who are always offended about everything, and the earrings weren't even anywhere close to trying to depict that. They were just a pattern. It's like, so yeah, people should be playing more video games and stop wasting their time trying to find ways to be, or reasons to be, offended. And in general, that's a good advice, I think, for everybody. It's like, there really is no reason to be on a gaming forum. I follow a couple of Facebook gaming groups. They don't post anything or have any conversations I would ever want to be a part of. Apparently Hearthstone is crashing again. There's just not a good reason to be on these big forums anymore. Just play the games and make your own small personal group amongst your friends that you want to talk about games. Don't talk to a bunch of random strangers who you never know if they're joking or if they're trolling or if they're even a real person or just some bot or just trying to get people mad. Yeah, forums have long since lost their usefulness, except for in some extremely niche communities and groups, and that's not just video games. That's pretty much everything. And I don't know if this game is going to load, so I might have to hit Control-Alt-Delete, which that might mess up the streaming. Well, before we do that, we have a game on Steam here called Age of Grit, which is from IQ Soup. What kind of game is it? It says it's a strategy adventure game, and it has a cyberpunk style appearance to it. This visually looks different. I'll say that. I can't really say for certain that it looks good, but a cyberpunk western style game. There might be something to this, maybe not. It's early access. It's $15.99 discounted and English only. I'm going to put it on the fall list. I'm going to see if people put their money where their mouth is and really play the game, and whether they like it or not. Meanwhile, I'm going to see if I can force close this without hitting Control-Alt-Delete, which I guess I don't really need to do because you can just right click the start button in Windows 10 and that works fine too. Let's see, where is Hearthstone? Blizzard app. I think it closed itself after the 20th. Yeah, it did. Okay. Attempt number 3 to launch Hearthstone. Let's see. Seems like the servers might be having trouble. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article. Izanagi Games, G-Rev, and Kakagori. No, Rui. Author announced Escape Adventure, a /shoot 'em up game called Inzai Shikyo Yoru Kill for the PS4 and PC. It was certainly a mouthful. I'm sure I didn't pronounce half of that right either. Okay, so if it's an escape adventure and a shoot 'em up, I'd be interested in seeing how that actually plays. And it is a continuation of games which once were only for the PS4, now are hedging their bets and being both for the PS4 and PC, as PlayStation is treating their exclusive publishers worse and worse. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Devil's Womb. I don't think we're going to get the daily quest done because I think we've hit a major problem. This looks like it might be a point-and-click adventure game with some weird art aesthetics, but it's tagged as an RPG game. So, I can't really call this an RPG Maker game. First of all, because they're actually trying really hard not to show the RPG elements and instead focus on other parts. So yeah, I think this is intriguing enough that it deserves a follow. It's another one of these dark stories. There's so many of these. Frankly, too many people trying to be edgy and too many people failing miserably. This game is free. It's the first chapter of a saga, apparently. As a third-party EULA, it's English and Italian. So, as a free game, I really wouldn't have to review it, but I'll keep it on the follow list to see if anything more comes out from this developer in a reasonable amount of time. Unfortunately, Steam doesn't allow you to make a second follow list where you could just put games that are in development, or games that are not. See, I just use the task manager to close Hearthstone and in the task, and it just didn't. It totally didn't. Close the program. Cancel. Try that again. For the third time. Now launching it for the third time. TechRaptor has an article here. Nowhere Prophet version 1.02 brings custom games and a new convoy. We heard TechRaptor talk about Nowhere Prophet several times, and this feels like more of them just pushing the game and advertising it. I suppose to do the due diligence would be to go to the Steam page and look at the reviews. 67% in the last 30 days, 81% overall. So maybe people didn't really like the upgrades or changes, or maybe there was some other reason why it isn't getting well received. Let's just burn through all the news because clearly Hearthstone has crashed. Their servers have crashed or something. For the PC, PS4, smartphone, and Switch, Saga Scarlet Grace Ambitions launches December 3rd in the West. I've heard a lot of Saga games. I've heard of the name of the games, but I'm still fuzzy as to what's really going on or what kind of game it is. I think it's a Square Enix RPG, if I was to guess, but I'm not even going to bother to do any more research than that. TechRaptor has an article. Anno 1800 Botanica DLC out now. Day and night cycle, free to play to all players. So if you're a fan of the Anno series, it seems like you can get some free DLC. I heard about one game that it was Mass Effect 1, where if you had Mass Effect 1, you could get the DLC for free but not through Steam. So you had to go find a patch and patch in the free DLC to get some free content, which is weird. I wouldn't be surprised if there's several hundred games, 200-300 games that I have that have something similar to that, and I just don't know. I wouldn't say 300. I would be surprised if it was more than 50 games that I owned that had something like that. And I excluding games that just have uncensored patches, which, yeah, I would imagine most visual novels on Steam have some uncensored patch that you can get. But the article in particular was an expansion on what it takes to get Mass Effect 1 to feel like Mass Effect 2 in 2019 and make it feel like an interesting experience. And I still don't think I'd want to play Mass Effect 1. It's really irrelevant at this point to play any of the Mass Effect series. It would make a lot more sense to try and play Halo 1, 2, 3, and 4 in preparation of Halo 5. You're getting a moderately similar experience. Gamatsu has an article for the PC System Shock 3 pre-alpha gameplay teaser trailer. So, pre-alpha, there's no such thing. I hate that they try to make that a thing. There's nothing before pre-alpha. This is a teaser trailer, just putting it out there that System Shock 3 is supposedly still in development for all the people that kickstarted it, I believe. I believe it was a Kickstarter. Meanwhile, there's been several stories of who owns the System Shock reboots and who's making those and who's making the System Shock 1 remake and who, or if anybody. So yeah, or who's making the System Shock 2 remake or remaster. I think they've got everything on the table right now. I think there's a System Shock remaster, a System Shock 1 remake, a System Shock 2 remaster, a System Shock 2 remake, and then a System Shock 3 in general is in development because it hasn't come out ever before. But I could totally be wrong about that. That just is really an example of how confused I am at this point, that there's so many games being promoted under the System Shock brand when they really should have just focused on System Shock 3 and only System Shock 3 until you get it out, or focus on the System Shock 1 remaster and get that out, and then announce the System Shock 2 remaster, then get that out, then announce System Shock 3. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article, Q&A, how a part-time team turned Hamlet into the time looping Else Noir game. I've heard about this game. I'm not sure it's actually on Steam. So I'll have to do some more research. Else Noir does look like it might be something that's slightly interesting because it's taking Shakespearean stories and tales and integrating it, and you haven't really seen anybody actually successfully do anything with Shakespeare since Shakespeare, other than plays, of course, and people acting it out, but doing anything new is kind of crazy, although arguably some stories may have been heavily influenced by Shakespearean tales. Moving on, Gamatsu for the PC has an article, Home Sweet Home Episode 2 gameplay trailer, a look at the puzzles and combat. Home Sweet Home, I believe a horror game, if I was to guess, very possibly a Korean Yggdrasil group. So looks like a horror game with its dark screenshot syndrome. Looks like there's might be a Japanese or Asian style horror game. Also looks like it might just be an asset flip puzzle adventure too. It looks a little rough, to say the least. So here's the main character. Yeah, that looks like a Taiwanese or character actually. Yeah, I don't know if there's a good game in this or not. Let's see. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. Let's start to burn through these faster, because if I watch all the trailers, it's gonna be another 10 minutes. TechRaptor has an article: punch your ticket to the stars this winter in Star Ocean First Departure R. Sounds like this is a Square Enix spin-off of, well, not a new game, it's a remaster of a PSP original of the Star Ocean series. I didn't know that there was a PSP Star Ocean game. Maybe I'm thinking of Phantasy Star Online. I could be. So, alright. Gamasutra has a video here: how to get a job writing for games. I'd say give up. There's about a dozen of those jobs in existence, and they're given highly based on who you know and how much of experience you have writing for other things, or already in the industry in some way. Gamasutra has the same article: Apple Arcade offers 100 plus exclusive-ish mobile games for $4.99 a month. So yeah, none of these articles are bothering to list all the games, but I don't think Apple really has listed all the games. One of the Apple games, though, is Choo Choo Rocket Universe, that is going to be an Apple exclusive. Which, okay, if you're a fan of Choo Choo Rocket, I don't think Choo Choo Rocket Universe is even the same game, but it might bring some nostalgia to back. Gamasutra has an article here: picture great game writing talk for GDC 2020 Game Narrative Summit. They're promoting GDC 2020. Not like GDC 2020 even happens in February or anything. Let's see. The Writing Summit happens on September 30th at noon. So is get up and have your say and we'll steal your ideas in front of other people is basically what I think the whole summit would boil down to. Gamatsu has an article here: Oni-chan Origin Japanese box art and pre-order bonus has been announced. This is for the PS4 exclusive. Exclusive costumes and weapons. Weird that you're saying exclusive costumes and weapons when it seems to have only been announced for the PS4. Oni-chan being the bikini ninja girls fighting zombies game that we haven't really seen a game come out in the last couple of years that is part of the mainstream, the main line of the Oni-chan series. There was a spin-off game. Also, this animation style I don't think is in line with the previous Oni-chan 3D models or animation style. This is going for a much more modern, soft anime style that you would expect from a modern game. Of course, they can't really go with the moe style in which the characters look younger and shorter, though, because that's just not what the characters are, unless they introduced a new character, which they might. I think it would still be probably YouTube friendly if I could play Oni-chan games. I think it would be fine, but who knows. YouTube certainly is trying to push community guidelines as much as possible on people and make sure that people know what they want, even though I don't think YouTube really knows what it wants or is consistent in enforcement to really claim that it knows what it wants. Moving on, Gamatsu for the Switch, Puzzle and Dragons Gold has an original story mode and super realistic monsters. I don't know why you'd want super realistic monsters as in quotes. I guess maybe that means that this Puzzle and Dragons game is just better looking. Let's see. Travis Strikes Again No More Heroes Complete Edition has all of its 51 trophies listed now for the PlayStation 4, which gives you a little bit of information of that the game is coming to the PS4 at all, which is probably more than I knew yesterday. Gamatsu has an article for the PC and Switch. Super Dragon Ball Heroes Mission World 3rd free update is now available. I think Dragon Ball Heroes was the most recent Dragon Ball game, and it wasn't as well received. It was kind of a card battling game, but not for smartphones, where it might have actually succeeded. So a little weirdness there. I didn't even know it was on PC. Next we have a Gamatsu article, PC, PS4, Switch. Fairy Tail game uses command-based battle system. You form a party of popular mages from the series. Okay. I'd have to remind myself what even the Fairy Tail anime series is. I know it's a moderately popular, I think fairly long-running anime series, but it is something that I think I have kind of forgotten or missed. It's a blind spot. Gamatsu has an article for the Switch here. Momotaro Dentetsu Showa Heisei and Rawa Mo Taiban. Development is 20% complete, which I think this is a train game through the eras, if I was to guess. Showa, Heisei, and Rawa are the three most eras, three most emperors in charge, most recent ones. I think, at least that's my understanding. Moving on, we have for PC, Bug Fables, The Everlasting Sapling for PC launches November 21st. I've never heard of this game. What is it tagged as? Doesn't say. We'll be interested to see if this comes to Steam or to the West. It might be an interesting kind of kid-friendly game. It might not, you know. I have not heard any information about it. Gamatsu has an article, psychological horror game Anthology of Fear has been announced for the Switch and PC. Okay, it's got a Steam page. We've got a bit of a trailer we can look here at. A little dark screenshot wandering around a visually appealing areas and varied areas. There's something to be said about that. We have a creepy character. Okay. Now, was there a game called Anthology that was heavily inspired by PT? And then that game got canceled, and maybe this is the continuation of that? I'm not sure. I know that there was 2 PT games, inspired games. And this may be one that's related to that or not. This may just be something completely different. It's been 5 years since PT happened, certainly, and talking about it anymore would be pretty ridiculous. So those other horror games though really didn't accomplish much, or finish, or make it to publication. Gamma Sutra has an article. The Coalition's Gear 5 includes an expansive list of accessibility options, if that's interesting to you. So it's always nice to increase the font size. Like, I say that a lot too, like, because I'm looking at a TV that's on the other side of the room. It's a moderately large TV, but yeah, text is often small when you're couch gaming. It would be nice to improve the size of text. Be nice if there was a way to force all games to increase the size of text, though, not just the small handful that give you that option. Next, we have a game on Steam called Boat Violence Ship Happens. This looks like a low effort, a battle game. What's funny is we saw a VR pirate fighting game that looks so much better than this. This is just laughable in comparison. Early access, $4.99, English only. Yeah, I don't see anything here that would want me to really play it. And it sure would have been nice if Hearthstone would actually load back in, but it's not going to. For smartphones, Komatsu, the Toro 2 Puzzle Doku Demo ECO debut trailer and pre-registration is now available. This looks like a weird looking game. I don't know if I can say anything more than that. Looks, maybe it's a Stardew Valley style game. Whether it's really just Candy Crush as far as the gameplay mechanic. Candy Crush with the ability to walk around an open world and talk to characters, which I don't think that adds much to Candy Crush. We only have a few more and then we're done. Next game we have on Steam is called Blasphemous. It's already rated very positively. It's a Metroidvania game where you're platforming and fighting characters, all of which are in some level of pain or seeking out some level of pain, including the main character you're playing as. I don't know if Blasphemous is the best descriptor of the name, and I don't think it's probably the best name to think of a game like this, but that's what they're going with. It clearly has a Binding of Isaac style artistic and theme to it, but a different kind of gameplay. In fact, it might be a little bit too difficult for me. It's from Team 17, and they kind of just snuck it out. Well, it's Team 17 Digital, so they may just be publishing it, actually. So yeah, this should go on the fall list, and I'll give it a little bit of a thought. And yeah, it'd probably be YouTube friendly. $22.49 is rather expensive. There's apparently several digital things you can buy, although it seems like only one of them is actually an in-game content skin, where everything else is something different. Lots of different language support here. Frankly, at a certain point, I prefer you just play as a good guy and with a regular theme. When everything is trying to be so edgy, it gets overused. Next, we have a game on Steam called Rabisco, which just seems like this is probably a kind of top-down, almost like a Flappy Bird game, with multiple directions, which makes it significantly better than a Flappy Bird game, I guess, but not really that interesting in general. $2.09 discounted, English with full audio, allegedly. Yeah, I don't see anything here. The art style, the paper and pencil art style, could work if this was a game I wanted to play in the first place, but It's just not there. It's just not a gameplay style I want. We only got a few more. Man, I keep saying that. Next we have a game on Steam called Summer Nights, which looks like a RPG Maker style game. I don't think there's anything here. This looks too much like an MS Paint game. Looks too much like a troll game. $4.99, no discount. English full audio. The MS Paint graphics just kill it. And yeah, a live action video ad's not going to help you any in most situations. Next, Gematsu has an article for PS4. Gungrave Gore details Beyond the Grave and Bunji Kagurashi, which I imagine is one of these characters or both of these characters from the Gungrave, I guess, anime series. Or maybe there is a Gungrave game series that I'm just not aware of. PS4 exclusive. We're seeing less and less of those. Next, we have a game on Steam called Project Gemini. This is another DigiPen student project. The thing I think about this in particular is that this looks like it's a full-on platform and pretty much a finished product with an actual video. So it's a little weird. Normally when you look at a DigiPen student project, which by the way there's a rumor, or DigiPen announced themselves, I guess it's not so much a rumor, that one of their former alumni who went on to work for Valve is going to give a speech at Valve and talk about the next VR game that they're developing. So Project Gemini is free. It's multiplayer only though, so I just wanted to give it its due. I guess what you would run into here is that it's probably only 1 or 2 levels and just has a fancy trailer, which I'm not sure why you would have a student bother to make a fancy trailer for a game you're going to put out for free because you don't want to profit off a student's work. Yeah, that is questionable. But I guess maybe they've expanded their degree plans to include people who would just be trailer designers and artists instead of just programmers and 3D modelers and things like that. Which, yeah, I guess maybe they've got a few more classes and a few more degree plans. Next, we have a game on Steam called 2 Till Midnight. This looks like this is a horror game, dark screenshot. And the problem with any kind of horror asset flip game like this may be is you just can't really tell. It's too dark and the pre-made assets look so good half the time. $10.99 English. Does this developer have anything else to his name? No. Honestly, I don't think I'd ever play any games like this. Even if there is a really, really good horror game, it would have to be on the level of Amnesia or something that so many people had played it already that it had more relevancy. So, 2 Till Midnight might be a good game. I'm not even going to bother to put it on the fall list to find out, though. Let's see. Gamma Sutra has an article. Get a job. Ubisoft, Wizards of the Coast, and more are hiring. This is probably a compilation of job listings we've already mentioned. So I'm just going to leave it at that and scroll through the screen a little slowly in case anything catches your attention. A lot of these Gamma Sutra job listings, though, I think don't ever get filled or are solely used to give people who are already working in the industry the benefit of looking for other jobs in the industry at different companies. Next, we have a game on Steam called Last Warrior. It's kind of a weird combination of a almost blocky Minecraft world and then a weird 3D platforming world and then sword and shield fighting against enemies that don't really fit that world. This feels like a Chinese game with several assets put together. 89 cents discounted, English and Russian. Okay, it's a cheap Russian game. Yeah, that's not going to the fall list. Gamma Sutra has an article here, 7 great examples of foreshadowing games that devs should study. Let's see, Alice Madness Returns. There was definitely some foreshadowing in Alice Madness Returns that I missed. I missed a lot of it. I had a total blind eye. The game Virginia, I think that game was talked about way too much. Silent Hill series, all of these would be spoilers, especially Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 4. Okay, I think people probably agree with that. Red Dead Redemption, Shinmin 2, Portal, Legend of Zelda series, the entire series of Legend of Zelda games apparently. There are definitely some cases where foreshadowing would have been beneficial. Control foreshadowed things, however, in particular, that didn't help anything and just made the story centered around the main characters when it really shouldn't have been. The main characters should have been the main characters in a much bigger story, considering that that's what they were trying to tell, is that there was this multi-dimensional organization in a magical building under attack from a magical creature from a different dimension, and yet it's still kind of all boiled down to the main character being the center of attention at all times. Next we have a game called Paradise, which seems to be like some kind of VR simulation of the testing of the first hydrogen bomb. Wouldn't that be the Bikini Atoll where it was tested? That's almost an interesting concept, I would suppose. See, virtual reality free, Price is Right, and English and Finnish. So I'll put this on the fall list if I ever were to buy a VR headset. Sure, I'd love to stand right next to a nuclear bomb and see what happens. Or hydrogen bomb. Right, so then that leaves me with one more story, and then we will be done with the stream today. And then I'll go to sleep. TechRaptor has an article. EA's testing a cloud gaming platform project, Atlas, starting today. I guess you can sign up for it, or they're testing it. Right now they're testing FIFA 19, Need for Speed Rivals, Titanfall 2, and Unravel. The idea that anybody would trust EA is rather laughable, though. Like, of all the companies you'd want to give your business to, I would much be more willing to give it to the Epic Store than EA. Like, EA is the worst. Ubisoft Uplay, way better than EA. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. And now I'm on the Humble Bundle, and well, the Humble Bundle has a bundle to level up your Python programming skills, which Python is a decent programming language to learn on, but probably not the language that you would use to program video games or anything too intense with. So then that just brings me back to my main stream and my main Twitter feed, and I guess I really don't need to scroll down my main Twitter feed any, so let's just wrap up here. It's a weird way to wrap up, certainly, that we're on Hearthstone that has crashed, and it hasn't ever really been this bad before. But anyways, that's going to be it for the stream. Thanks to everybody who watched. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.